Welcome to part 7 of our video series. This series is an advanced hormone tutorial series, and in this section we're going to talk about the monitoring of vaginal hormones, specifically with our test, especially in this case because it's specifically built to work more effectively for vaginal hormones. We talked about in the last couple parts about oral hormones, and a lot of times people want to avoid oral hormones to skip all of that metabolism that goes on in the first pass in the gut and with the liver. And so vaginal hormones is a nice choice for women to avoid that, but then also to get some of that hormone in at the local level there if there's vaginal atrophy and vaginal dryness. But we still want to monitor those hormones and see what's going on. But there are really some problems with doing that. As you can see, some not so good marks here for your typical lab testing when we're looking at vaginal hormones. And really this dried urine testing that we use is really the ideal option for vaginal hormones, and we specifically built it to be effective for vaginal hormones. So what are the issues here? Really the main issue for serum and saliva is timing. Now there's not a lot of data on saliva testing with vaginal hormones, and I think that needs to be explored a little bit more, but either way with both of these you've got some issues with timing, which can be alleviated using urine testing, but it has its own problem, and that is contamination. And this is what we have solved with the specific way that we do our testing. So let's look at the timing issue that I'm talking about. Here's a study where they looked at vaginal testosterone, and they're showing a couple different women here. So what we've got the placebos for these two women. So this is what they look like without hormones. And then you can see with the hormones, here's the problem. Person number 1 peaks at 8 hours. Person number 2 peaks at about 4 hours, and they're back to baseline at 8 hours. So when do you test these women? And you don't know this information, right? So, and with each permutation of a different hormone, a different base, a different concentration, and then different women, and what was their activity level? Did they take it at night and then lay in bed? Did they take it in the morning and then go jogging, or throughout their day as they're upright and busy? The kinetics of this is going to be different in every situation. So if you tested, for example, here at 8 hours, and you say, oh, I've got a pretty reasonable level, I'm going to be okay with that. But if you tested this woman here at 8 hours, you might say, well, I need more hormone. And that may or may not be true depending on what's gone on in the hours preceding and the hours following when that value is taken. So it becomes very difficult. Now, what you'd ideally like is to take this curve here and, if you will, integrate the area under that curve. Now, what's useful for that is urine testing, because you can collect over a long period of time, and you can collect over that entire period of time with a urine collection. The problem with that is you're going to contaminate the urine, obviously, with testosterone and estrogens, but there's a solution to this. So here's what we're doing. With testosterone or estrogens, they have to be conjugated to excrete them in the urine. So if that represents testosterone, that's not what we find in urine. We have to add either a glucuronide or a sulfate group onto that for it to end up being water soluble enough to end up in urine. Okay, so if this is your urine sample here, what you have is there you can see the one little free testosterone here, and the rest of it's all conjugated. Right? So most of it's conjugated. That's really what we're looking for. Okay, so if we use vaginal hormones and a bunch of hormone comes into the sample by way of contamination, that's going to be free hormone. It's going to create a problem. Our value is too high, and we don't know by what degree. So what we do is we eliminate all of the free hormone before we do the test. And now we're left with the testosterone that is in urine due to the systemic increase of hormone from the supplementation, but not from the contamination. So let me show you this. So we ran this woman's sample twice. We did it by our method, which is the results on the left, and we did it with a conventional method on the right. We can also add testosterone, so with and without contamination. So if you look at this, you've got estradiol right down the middle. It's normal. So you're getting systemic increase of estradiol. And then here's estrone. and then here are all the metabolites. And so we can look at the relative level of metabolites. We can do some ascertaining of what's going on here. If you look at the person on the right, or the same results on the right, look how high that estradiol is. What is the relevance of that number? There is no relevance, because what that is that's this original 3.6 plus some arbitrary amount of hormone from what leached into the urine from the supplement itself. Same thing with testosterone. Does this woman actually have elevated levels of testosterone? No, she's got more a low normal amount of testosterone, and we can see that, but we need this method that eliminates the free hormone in order to do that. So this method is really a very nice option for vaginal hormones. Now, the same thing in terms of this timing issue exists if you're taking perianal or rectal mucosal, whatever you want to call it. If you're putting the hormone on the mucosal membrane around the anus, you actually get a lot of hormone that gets taken up into systemic circulation, and we can monitor that, right? So a postmenopausal woman is going to be down in here at these low levels. And why is this woman way up on the higher side of normal? Because she's taking her progesterone, and you can see it there. Okay, so, but it's also worth stating that if you take hormones vaginally and then you move them to the perianal region for the day of testing because you're afraid of contamination, these results are actually going to be a bit different, because the anus area actually plumbs more directly into the liver, whereas the vaginal area, the blood flow doesn't empty right into the liver as it does there. So if you're switching from one to the other just to do the lab testing, there's a little bit of an issue. It's much, much more of an issue if, and I've seen people do this, you take vaginal hormones on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday, and on Thursday I'm going to do my lab test, so I switch to transdermal hormones. The levels of hormones, and you can watch the video on transdermal, are totally and completely different, and that is not an effective way to monitor that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday level of vaginal hormones by switching to transdermal hormones. That is not an effective strategy, so I would not suggest that. What I would suggest is using a test where you can look at hormone levels over time, where the contamination is removed, and it really is an ideal method, and we specifically built it to work effectively for vaginal hormones, because as you watch the video for transdermal hormones, what you'll see is there is a lot of confusion about why do we get these really high saliva levels and low urine levels and low serum levels, and trying to make sense of that is difficult, and there really isn't a great robust testing method. And again, you'll have to watch the video for more specific data, but I see a lot of women switching to, and a lot of doctors switching to mucosal membrane uptake of hormone because it is effective. But and do also keep in mind that whatever you see on a urine test, on a serum test, and saliva from vaginal hormones, there may be, and there is very, very likely, a much higher level of hormone going on there in the local environment. Now, you can use that to your advantage, right? You can give estriol or testosterone and help with vaginal dryness. You can give estradiol and help with vaginal issues without getting quite the systemic circulation of hormones. And that's what we're really monitoring with the urine testing, is what do the systemic levels look like, because it is an effective way to get systemic hormones. You can use very low doses and get more of a localized effect, or you can use slightly higher doses, and then you're going to get systemic levels of hormones, and that's really what we're monitoring with our testing. So as we move along, we've covered vaginal hormones, and in the next we're going to cover some of these other scenarios, and so I would encourage you to continue watching, and I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial on vaginal hormones. And if you have any questions, feel free to email at info@precisionhormones.com, and we thank you for your time.